break it on. On down.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jeezy Jenkins. Welcome to another episode of Worth the Conversation. Tonight we on one of my favorite people. That's right, she is one of the biggest mental health experts in the country. Y'all make some love, make some way for Dr. Sherry Blake. That's right, she's with us today, a mental health maven. Dr. Blake, how you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I am great. What about you?
I'm fantastically well. I've been using that word a lot lately. Those two words together, they make me feel, they just make me feel how I feel.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
No complaints.
And hey, it sounds good. So you're all good.
Thank you. How have you been during the pandemic?
The pandemic has been one of those things that it has been busy. It's been crazy for me because I deal with stress. I deal with people and dealing with different issues. So it was really busy, but it's all good. And I think like everybody else, I have fatigue and everybody's ready to get back out and have some sense of normalcy. However, otherwise, it's all good. I can't complain. We survived. We're here in 2021.
That's right. When you say get back to normal, do you really think things like, because right now everybody's loving these Zoom calls. They get more done. I've had people tell me this has been one of their best years ever. In their fields.
You're right. I don't think normal as we've known it in the past will ever be. We have to create a new normalcy.
New norm, yeah, of course.
And the new normalcy is what I cannot even imagine 1,000, 2,000 people in an office building at once. I can't imagine some of the things that we were doing. So we're going to create a new normalcy. We're going to create a lifestyle that is comfortable, and sometimes it's the Zoom because it works.
How has the pandemic affected just mental health as far as your list of long-lasting clients?
Well, for you and for many others, you're smart. Many people took the time and really focus on families. They build relationships. They build their businesses. They thought about things. They even did chores. They cleaned out closets. They did some things that they had been putting off. Other people got stuck emotionally because it was a lot of the fear of what was happening, what was going to happen, losing the job, not being able to do the things they wanted. And it was very tough for a lot of people emotionally. And that was real hard. And there was a new reality that they hadn't thought about. And although spending time with family is really good, it's not good if you're not in a healthy relationship. It's not good if your children are not in order to some capacity. So that added stress, that added people drinking, that added a lot of abuse, that added people.
Yeah, because the kids can't go to school, so they're forced to stay at home with some might be in abusive situations or even relationships. You might have people living together and it was already abusive, and now you're stuck at home with this stress and this uncertainty, and it just amplifies everything.
And that happened, and I worked a lot and helped families and couples and individuals a lot through that. In fact, I had a client not too long ago. She was totally embarrassed because what happened with her on a Zoom call, she and her husband were having difficulty before the pandemic, and during the pandemic, she found out some things that, no woman wants to hear, about her husband. And she sort of confronted him, not knowing that the children was in listening distance on Zoom at school. And so as the husband was trying to leave, her anger escalated. She was following him out the door, yelling and screaming and stuff. And the kids on the screen heard it. Her son heard it. And the teacher was saying, mute, and the kid
they don't know.
the kid, because he's watching his parents. And so she talked about how embarrassed and how stressful the whole situation became because everything was exposed.
Right.
And people don't realize sometimes when a camera's on and a mic is on, people hear and they see things sometimes you don't want them to see.
Right.
So I had a lot of family dynamics like that, but also there was a lot of rebuilding of relationships, people really getting involved in ways that they hadn't been before and really loving it. So, you know, we had the good, the bad, and the ugly that came out of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think everybody took the time to build and really just see what was, I know for myself, just seeing what was really important. You know, because
Right.
once you go through something, because I'm in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like it. You know, and just going through it, you just start to really understand who and what is important, and even your mental health. You know, just how important it is for you to do the things that make you feel healthy as an individual. And something else that I saw too that I was a little taken back by was just the suicide rates, and you know, just doing this whole thing. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, the suicide rates, you know, of course, at least the suicide thoughts increased tremendously. And part of that was a sense of hopelessness, a sense of despair, a sense of nothing's going to change. And it may have already been bad, but it sort of pushed it over the edge. And I cannot help talking about the number of people that died, the loved ones that died of COVID. So you had everything that was going on at once, and then you couldn't grieve like you usually grieve. We couldn't have funerals. We couldn't have homecomings like we did. Families could not embrace for the support. So a lot of people did feel totally helpless and totally, you know, like, I just can't make it. So you saw a lot of increase in terms of mental health issues, and the mental wellness is like, you know, we are so used to having people around us. And when something happens like a death or someone being sick, and you had so many people with loved ones in the hospital that couldn't even go in the hospital, that couldn't say goodbye. Then you had parents or other people that were in assisted living facilities or nursing homes, and you couldn't even touch them, you couldn't go in. So it's extremely hard, and the grief process continues even today. And I'm still dealing, you know, with a lot of people with lost ones where they are feeling totally overwhelmed.
Even for myself, I lost, you know, my mother during the pandemic, and in the same, she was in assisted living. And my question is, thank you so much. And my question is, what's the proper way to grieve? Because for me, I've lost so many friends and throughout, you know, the life that I once lived, and even when I got out of that life, I had to sit back and watch people pass. I had a friend, I never forget. I was in a nightclub with a bunch of my friends, and I got a call, and one of my friend's little brother got shot. And I remember us leaving the club and rushing to Grady Hospital and going into the emergency room. And I just remember me and my friend and his mother was sitting in the room, and the doctor walked in, and he just said, you know, I just want to let you know you lost your son. And he walked out, and that was it. And I'm stuck there with my friend and his mother, but my natural instinct is to be strong for them. I'm hurt, but I got to be strong for them. And I've done that so much in my life, just being the strong person. And then when you lose somebody that's close to you, you go through that process, because now you're in a family, and I'm the you know, I'm the headstone in the family. So now I got to be the person that's strong, but with all these things going on. So I'm like, what's the proper process to grieve? Because I'm like, am I grieving correctly, or am I being that guy again?
Well, first of all, there is no proper way to grieve. Everybody's an individual. We all hurt emotionally, and we all grieve. So you have to grieve in the way that's best for you. Some people cry, some people get angry. There are stages of grief, but I have added additional stage. Usually people go through the course of shock and disbelief. Then they try to bargain. Then there's a sense of anger that sits in. Then there's a sense of acceptance or depression eventually. And then you get to acceptance. And what I have found in my work is that, and you float. Those stages are not all at once. It's not like, oh, yes, initially you're shocked. You just, can't believe it. But it's not like, oh, okay, I'm through with this. Now I'm going in this, because you waver back and forth. But I say to people, sometimes when things happen, it's like life is going on. You're walking along, the bottom falls out. It's like, the bottom of your world, you just sort of dropped into a cave almost. And you're thinking, what what is going on? How did this happen? You have all these thoughts. And when you're close to someone, you're often in that cave alone, and you're confused, you're angry, you don't know which way to go. And you are scared because it's like, I haven't been here before. How can I live without this person? This is my mama. This is my brother. This is my sister. So you sit there in this cave not knowing which way to go. You know one thing, you cannot go out the way you came in.
Correct.
So what I have helped people to understand, it's not a cave, it's a tunnel. So you have to work your way through. So some days are better than others. So you may cry some days in your grief process. Some days you may feel pretty good and you may keep going. But the good thing with a tunnel, it goes, you have different passageways. Sometimes the ceiling is high, sometimes it's low. But eventually you're going to get through because there's a light at the other end. And so I tell people there is no proper way. And you don't have to be strong for other people. You have to allow yourself to feel. Right. You have to allow yourself to grieve, to cry, to do whatever you need to do, because you're going to grieve now or you're going to grieve later. But we all grieve.
Right. Doctor, let's talk about PTSD from racism and police brutality. What does this do to our mental health? Like, what does this do to us as men? Because it's almost like they're trying to take our masculinity on one end, and then, the price of that is death, or it could be.
Absolutely, and it has heightened since we have had people taking pictures, we have cameras, we have recordings. So it's no longer an issue, oh, this is something someone said, is he say, she say, the world can see it. And what it does to our mental health is that, number one, it puts the stress on it. It strains it. And I'm going to come back to PTSD in a minute. But what happens is, as a Black man, and again, I'm a wife, I have a Black husband, I have a son, I have loved ones that are males, and all the people around us that we care about. Every time you walk out the door as a mother or as a wife, you're right. You can get pulled over. My husband get pulled over. I don't care if it doesn't matter if you're driving a certain type car. It's like, if you're Black, if you're a person of color, you're at risk. So it really puts a lot of stress. And we have had PTSD, but we have handled it in a different manner. Now, it used to be things would happen because all of this has been happening, trust me, I'm sure, all along. The difference is that we're seeing it, and we're seeing it in real time. And not only are we seeing it, we're seeing it over and over and over again. So it's not an isolated incident that happened here and nothing happens until a year later and we see this. It's back. So it all of a sudden we realize, oh my God, how much of a risk, how much of a harm we're at. So when we talk about PTSD, we're talking about post-traumatic stress syndrome, and we are stressed as people of color most of the time. I think our stress level is at 9 at best and 10 being the cap. We're stressed about all the disparities. I don't care if it's health care and people can't get their need. I don't care if it's education. I don't care if it's financial. We are stressed. Right. And when we see this happening and our loved ones getting shot and killed or pepper sprayed, and the racism is real. it is now in your face. And I grew up in a time that we had, of course, racism was there, but we sort of knew. We knew who the bad guys were from, you know, it was a black or white situation. We knew, you know, what was going on. But now it's like, who do you trust?
Right.
Where do you turn? And, you know, when is it going to happen? So there's a heightened fear, like it can happen at any moment. So we're always on guard.
Right.
And we have to talk to our children about this.
Absolutely. That's powerful. We had to swap them headphones out, you know.
Hey, I did. You know, I'm like the old folks. For one thing, your parents always had a backup to a backup.
There you go.
So y'all have to excuse me. I have a backup, but it's working.
That's right. Old school works sometimes. You got to go.
Old school works.
But you was mentioning earlier just about how it's everything's happening in real time, which I agree with. But my thing is, does it make it like a normal, like is it normalizing it? Because you see it so much. On the way here, I was watching a video where in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, a white sergeant was harassing a black kid for walking through a neighborhood. And then where is it in the world where you're not free to walk in America through anyone's neighborhood if you're not doing anybody any harm? But it's like when you see this, and last week it was something else, and next week it was something else, and like when you're waking up and you're seeing all these things and you're not seeing them resolved, when you see this, does it normalize it for us? Does it make us feel like this is the way it is, and what can we do about it?
Well, I think within the last 4 years, the past 4 years, racism and open attack of hatred and racist comments and actions have been allowed to go without any real consequences.
Right.
And I think a lot of times things haven't had consequences because we didn't know about it, or we couldn't prove it, or something along that line. But when you create an atmosphere that you can hate openly, you can say what you want to say about people and taunt them, it gives people in power the feeling that it is okay and nobody's going to say anything. And I think that's what has happened. And I know we have had racism, we've had hatred, we've had acts that are just horrible to happen throughout the years. I think what is happening now, as we see it in real time, we are tired of it, and people are responding to it differently. I think also it's very sad, but as we see this, and when nothing is done, and it happens over and over again, it gives people the feeling of being helpless, which creates a lot of anger that's getting expressed sometimes appropriately, sometimes inappropriately. And it's very, very scary for the younger generation that's coming along that may not have a mentor or people to help them sort of navigate the dangerous waters that we're in. But it shouldn't be. It should not be. We should have our kids free to walk through a neighborhood or whatever the case may be. This is a result of the culture that has been created in our society.
Well, let me ask this though, like how much would mental health play in a lot of these situations where somebody's mental health might not be well and they're being put in these situations where they instantly think they're fear for their life, so they don't react as, it looks like they're obstructing justice, but they're actually fleeing for their life, or they're scared, or their mental might not be all the way on, and then they get in these situations where they end up being killed, they end up being shot, and nobody's, like, that's not even the conversations. It's like, now you're a criminal now, or this trial is to say whether or not this officer did the right thing. But if you're mental, I actually watched one episode, well, not an episode, well, a clip where the officer was called over for the second time to deal with an older gentleman that was in his house with his family, and he had this episode, and he came outside, and he ended up being shot in front of his whole family. But going into the situation, you knew that there was a mental health issue in the home.
Right. And that happens. And what is happening is when people have loved ones that have mental health challenges and they need help, now they're afraid to call the cop because there's a greater risk of them ending up being dead, and when they only needed help. I think we have to get educated more about mental health and mental illness. And I want to say this just for your audience, because I've been doing this a long time, and I have to say, everybody, and we shy away from things with mental health. Anything that says mental illness, mental health, people tend to run from it, especially in the African American community or people of color in general. And what I want people to know is everyone has a mental health, just like everyone has a physical health. But everyone is not mentally ill, just like everyone is not physically ill. And I think we forget that mental health is just your health. Now, how well are you on that scale, or how ill you are, depends on what's going on and circumstances in your life, just like in physical health.
Right.
In physical, my husband's is a medical doctor, and we talk about this all the time. Yes, everybody has a physical health. You can have pneumonia, or you can have a cold. You can have, you can be down, or you can be clinically depressed. So there's a continuum, and we have to treat it as such. So when someone is in a home that has a known mental illness, just like you wouldn't treat a cold the same way you wouldn't treat pneumonia, you wouldn't treat a bipolar incident, a person who have a bipolar episode, with someone that may be just having a mood swing, a general mood swing. So we need to get cops, we need to get the public educated about what to do, how to respond. And there's this whole myth that all mental people that are getting treated or have mental health challenges or whatever, they're all severely mentally ill, and they're all, doing things that are extreme. That's a very small number. Most people with mental illness is not violent.
Right.
They are not out killing people. They're not doing the things that we often see. That's not to say that some of the people that have done some of those may not have some mental health challenges or have been diagnosed in some way with some mental illnesses. But we have to understand there's a real difference between severe mental illness and people that are having challenges in terms of depression, in terms of bipolar. Then there's different levels. You can, have some mild mood swings, or you can be severe.
Right.
But if you come in to help someone, you need to understand, you need to be prepared what you're walking into, because they have already told you someone's mentally ill.
Yeah. What's the biggest misconception to you when it comes to our people as far as what mental health is?
First thing, I'm not crazy. I'm not sick.
Right.
And it's like, you don't have to be crazy or sick to deal with your mental health. And the misconception is that if you dare tell someone, they're going to throw you in a facility, Jackson or wherever, and lock the door behind you. And that's not true either. And one of the reasons I even started doing reality TV was to help people understand that it is okay to get help. Because we only have the image of psychologists, mental health providers as someone in a closed door must have a crystal ball or something.
Right.
And it used to be considered, I don't know what they're doing and what they're saying. Really? I have a doctorate degree. Yes, I was trained, but it's a doctorate in psychology, and I have treatment. I know how to treat health issues, mental health issues. And so knowing that is not something like, well, I'm going to just come in and talk. So a lot of times people think that therapy is, they just talking. We call it talk therapy. But if you are qualified, you should be definitely talking and listening with a plan in mind. It's not just we're sitting around. I hope you're comfortable enough when you come to see me. But yeah, I'm going to make you feel like you ain't talking. You're just talking to someone else. But trust me, I understand where I'm going with it.
Right. It's like a whole process.
It's a process.
You work with reality TV stars for a while. And this is a question I want to know. Do you think reality TV is healthy or unhealthy? If you had to...
It pros and cons.
Okay.
First of all, and I still work with a lot of celebrities, a lot of entertainers, and let me tell you the difference. Everything I do is confidential.
Correct.
Unless you choose to share it on air, on TV. I don't walk around and say, hey, I talked to him, or you don't do that. So I will carry a lot of stuff to the grave.
Right.
But reality TV in and of itself, I think, is good in that it has opened up opportunities for people to build a platform to have a business, to do other things. Right. It is bad in that the perception sometimes is that everybody lives, especially in Atlanta, these grand lives. Right. Everybody, everybody drives this.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah,
everybody rich in Atlanta. There's no way around it.
Yeah, you live in Atlanta, you got it like that.
Right.
It's not, no. And the reality is that reality TV is entertainment. Okay. And I tell people this is entertainment.
Right.
This is not real life. You still have to put the dishes in the dishwasher, right, or pick up the kids, or, listen to a crying baby, or whatever the case may be. But reality TV is entertainment. And I think people get it confused. And they think this is real life.
It almost seems like me, the more toxic the situation, the more you can tell that the person may have mental issues, the bigger the star they are. The more people want to engage.
or
the crazier things they say is like, oh yeah, this,
Like, who says it? But you know what? Sometimes people say and do things because they understand that it's entertainment. It's about ratings.
Okay.
It's about having a contract next year. And they do get really extreme. And you're going, really? And for me, it was very important to, anytime I'm on camera, to come in to help people understand, number one, I will not be jumping across the table to choke you or to curse you out. That's not how it works. Right. It's like, that's not how it should work. But also to understand there's a process in getting help. So when people escalate, and we've seen a lot of stuff on reality TV, when they escalate, you have to understand that sometimes that's for the ratings, right, sometimes that's just who they are.
Okay.
And they do look very much out there. And sometimes they are. Right.
It's because and it's like you judge a person from the clips of what you see.
Yeah.
And that's what people buy into.
It sells.
It sells. That's got to be a tough one. You work with so many entertainers, like what major needs that you see that people have that they struggle with as public figures? Because it's been so many times where, like, I try to my grandmother taught me to just be honest, straight up, fair, respectful. If somebody disrespects you, you go above and beyond to show them that you're not the person to be disrespected. And those are the things that I live by. And I've made mistakes in my career. I've done things that that I thought at the time were right, or I done things that I knew that was wrong, and I stood on them because that's what I wanted to stand on. And it just seems like when you're on this public platform, you're ridiculed, and it's almost like people throw stones at you, and don't even understand what you're going through. Because I remember it was one time, like I swear, like, I don't know what was happening. I was going to jail like every week, but it was like crazy stuff. Like my alarm go off in my house, the police show up, they want to see my ID. I'm like, I live here, I bought it. I'm not showing you nothing. Then the next week it was something else. And it got so bad, I was going in there and they was like, hey, Jeezy, you good?
Hey,
we want
you
your
back.
lunch. Right.
Hey, you're back again.
And in my mind, I was in the lowest point in my life because I was just so rebellious, and I was just so angry about so many things. But to the world, I'm a public person, so now I look like I'm losing my mind. But I got personal problems. I got things that I'm going through in my family, And
that happens. And what happens a lot too with that, and I'm so glad you shared it, because when you become a public figure, you're under a microscope.
Right.
It's like everybody has a lens, and they're analyzing, they're making decisions and making comments about your life, and they have no idea number one, who you are and what it took to get there. And I think one of the biggest things that I think a lot of people don't realize, when you go into public into the public arena where you become a celebrity or become larger than life to some people, what you don't realize, what they don't realize, is you give up a sense of privacy. You give up a sense of privacy. But I try to help people stay emotionally grounded, because if you don't stay emotionally grounded, you can get swept up and all the currents that's coming and all the darts that's been thrown at you, and you start responding. You respond and you're fighting battles that you can't win.
Right.
So all of a sudden, your life is, in a tailspin. So I try to keep people emotionally grounded. And one of the greatest mistakes too, people start believing their own hype. They start believing they think they're a legend in their own mind. And I'm thinking, really?
Right.
And they don't understand that entertainment is a arena where you are maybe in the limelight at some point. I call it a moving stage, a revolving stage.
Okay.
You enter left and you gradually work your way, because you're working till you get to center. Now you finally made it where you want to be in your career, and the lights and everything is going right. The money, the fame, and all of this stuff is coming at you at once, and you're loving it and you're absorbing it. But what you forget, and what people don't understand,
you got to exit right.
You got to exit. That's right. You got to exit right. And as you move off, they're not ready to get out of the limelight. So they're fighting for attention to get back there. And they're not prepared. So one of the things I help people do too is understand that this is a moving stage. You got to get prepared for life beyond what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
How are you going to reinvent yourself?
Right.
How are you going to do whatever you need to do? Or how are you going to settle into just being off stage?
Yeah, and I love that too, because once I started to understand that there was more to life than what people, because how people meet you, that's how they know you.
That's
once
right.
I started to understand there was more to life than just what I was doing, I just became, I just got at a place of just so much peace that
That's
it didn't
right.
matter what people said or done.
Good.
It's like when I stopped caring what people thought is the day my
Thank
life
you.
began. And I was just like, you know what? And
That's it.
every morning I get up, I think about the things that I'm grateful for, and I go on through my day, and it's just like, life is short. It's very short, and if you don't take the time to enjoy it, it'll pass you by.
You're absolutely right. And you have to prioritize what is really important, because at the end of the day, it's not about how many clubs you visit, how many records you sold, or how many shows you're on. It's about, what have I done in life, and who are those people that are going to give me a glass of water at the end of the day?
Right, and make sure that you're good, and be right there by your side if something
That's
happens
right.
to you. I heard this word one time, and I sat down with this guy, and we had this real conversation, and he said to me, he said, you need to give yourself grace.
That's right.
And I
That's right.
immediately, like, I've heard it. I've heard it in church. I've heard it in things. And I just really went to research the word and just to understand what that really meant. So, and to me, I know how important it is, but to you, the importance of giving ourselves grace as we work through, like, mental health struggles, how important is that?
It is critical. It is critical, because we tend to be harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else.
Right.
We are human. We make mistakes. We do good in some arena. And we have to learn to, number one, in order to have that grace, we have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves. And we, sometimes we have a hard time doing that, because we live in the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And no, let it go. Right. Let it go and understand this is where you are in the present. And forgive, because forgiveness releases you to whatever you're tied to. So I didn't do what I need to do for my sister, or my mom, or my dad, or what. Let it go. Right. You can't go back. So it releases you from that, so you can give yourself the grace to heal.
Right.
And it's about emotional healing. And we don't take time to emotionally heal, to spend time with self. Self-care is real. And I talk about self-care as being more than a luxury. It's a necessity.
Right. Yes, and it's crazy because I remember just going through a lot of things coming up, and I seen a lot of people go left on me at times. I felt like they should have really stayed solid, and I've helped a lot of people that, you know, got in positions and didn't do what they were supposed to do, and it was hurtful to watch.
Absolutely.
And at some point, I was upset, and it showed. You know, I was upset. I can walk in the barbershop and be mad. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like I was upset and showed. And I just remember reading this book, and it was like, write down the names of everybody that you think that's done you wrong. Everybody that did anything to you that it felt like you wouldn't have done to them. And I did that. And write down one reason why you would forgive them. And I did that. And I went through that whole list. And after that, I felt so much better because it was like I forgave them.
That's right.
And it wasn't on me anymore. So now I can go on and live my life, and I don't have this resentment. And I don't feel it because it only affects you because they don't care. You know,
it eats you up.
Right.
It eats you up.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, and one of the things, again, we don't realize is like, you know, we're angry in doing that point. And it's like you want to poison someone, you put something in the water, but you drink in the water.
You poison yourself.
It's like, you know, so you say you gotta let go. And when I say let go, because also check yourself, and I have to do this with myself and others. Check yourself, ask yourself, why am I doing what I do for others?
Right.
And if you're doing it with the expectation that they're going to be grateful and supportive of you and come back and, you know, boost you on, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Wrong reasons. I'm
doing it for the wrong reason.
I'm going to say a phrase to you. I want you to tell me what this means to you.
Okay.
Black youth and mental health.
Yeah. Black youth and mental health. That is an area that we must pay attention to. And it is a serious area that's often overlooked because what we don't realize between, I think, the ages of 15 and 20, 21, there's the highest rate of suicide.
Really?
And for teens, right. And that increases because we have teenagers, and Black teenagers, we used to think that, you know, mental health and young people, oh, that's, you know, they'll be all right. Just, you know, just feed them and love them and care for them. No, they're struggling with things that we never even dreamed of struggling because of the internet, because of the exposure, because of so much stuff. It's coming at them when we don't even know as adults that they're dealing with. So we see an increase in suicide rate in that age group. We also know that oftentimes that African-American children think about suicide and have suicidal ideations more than it's actually acted on. But that is an issue because, you know, I've been very fortunate, very blessed in my career. And, you know, it's not like we start our career and we have it all planned out. Right. You know, we end up, you know, working in a lot of different capacities. So I've worked with children, adolescents, and families. I do mostly adults now, you know, and I want to say, thank God I don't have to work with children. No, I don't do the play therapy and all the other stuff and art therapy I used to do. But what I wanted to say is that a lot of times parents do not see the telltale signs, neither do adults in general, of mental health challenges. And when kids say stuff, when people tell you things, we just sort of play it off and write it off. And I had a parent once who came to see me with a 12-year-old. And she had a 12-year-old son, and the school said, hey, you can't bring him back until they, you see a psychologist. And what had happened, he had written a suicide note in school, and the counselor got involved. They said, oh no, we got to have him assessed. The mother comes to me, didn't tell me that part initially, started talking about how bad this kid is. He won't clean up his room. He won't get out of bed until he's sleeping a lot. He acts like he don't want to be about part of the family. He stays in his room. And then near the end, it was an hour session, and I promise you, 15 minutes left in the session, she says to me, she says, yeah, so I had to come here because the school, and I had asked her why she was coming, and she started telling me about his behaviors. She says, yeah, the school said I had to do something about him writing this suicide note. I said, excuse me? Excuse me? And so she said, yes. She said, I said, well, did you talk to him about it? Because it had been now almost a week later, because she didn't bring him right away. And so she said, yeah, I talked to him, and I told him, boy, you better not kill yourself. I ain't gonna walk in there and find you dead. What do you want me? And I'm like, that's the attitude. What do you have to be depressed about?
Right. Right.
And this kid had a plan. He was planning on hanging himself in the closet, had the belt, had it all on. And she's talking about, you better not do that.
Right. Is that because a lot of parents don't know? Because mental health is definitely a issue in black families. But do you think because we don't understand, we don't have the proper structure, or is it that we don't know the telltale signs, or is it that we automatically assume that we can't afford the treatment, so we go to the next best thing, which is scaring the life out of the kid and making them just try to straighten up because I'm working so hard, I don't got time to go sit in no therapist's office.
That's right. Or we're going to just pray about it.
Right.
And that's another big misconception. You asked me earlier. It's about, oh, we're just going to pray about it and we can pray it away. I say you can pray, but you still need to see someone.
Okay.
I think it's all of the above.
Right.
I think that it's a lack of knowledge, and one of the things I try to do with you or with anybody else is reduce the stigma.
Right.
The stigma is what says, oh, if I'm crazy or you're sick or whatever. No, it doesn't mean any of those things. It means that there's a challenge and something is going on. We just need to figure out what, like you would go to the medical doctor if your stomach was hurting, to figure out, is it a stomach ache? Is it gas?
Right.
Or do I have a colon problem?
Right.
What's going on?
Right.
So not only is there a lack of knowledge, there is a lack of understanding of the significance. They don't understand how important mental health is. And then there's there's this mindset that, well, I can't afford it anyway. Well, your insurance, if you have any insurance, it will cover it. And then if you don't have insurance, there are some people out there that will take pro bono cases. Okay. So it's not even about affordability or accessibility. It's about understanding the significance in having mental health aboard.
What advice would you have for someone who's going through all these traumas with these triggers, but they're venting and they're talking to their small circle of friends rather than to go seek therapy or some professional help?
It's nothing wrong with talking to your friends. It depends on your friends. You got to be careful with that. You don't talk to everybody.
Right.
But if you trust them and you want to talk to a small group, that's fine. But keep in mind that they're going to just rehash what? Yeah, man, I had that to happen to me too. What did you do?
Right.
And that's great for a support system. But if you want to move beyond where you are, then sit down with a psychologist, sit down with a therapist, sit down with someone that really can help you move beyond where you are to get unstuck from those past traumas, from those childhood traumas.
Yeah, because the few therapy sessions I went to myself, and I sat in, I'm just like, the questions they were asking, I'm like, yo, what does that got to do with what's going on right now? and the more I got into it, I started to really understand, like, man, I had some things happen in my childhood that really, and they say that things that happen to you when you're 8, 9, 10 normally play out when you're in your late 30s.
Absolutely.
It all starts to just come out, and you're not really understanding why you looking at things a certain way or why certain things trigger you. And for me, it's like when I feel like I feel like if I'm looked over in a conversation, that makes me furious. But I came from a situation where I was growing up, my auntie didn't want me to talk. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
I'm gonna talk.
I got something to say. You know.
That's right.
And it's crazy.
And you're gonna hear me.
Right. And it's crazy because one of my aunties, she used to call me Jerry's kids, and I never knew what that was until I got a little older, and she thought it was funny. You know, but that made me who I am today because I wanted to show her that I was smarter than what she thought. But then I didn't realize that it put me in a situation in life that's how I play the game. If somebody says something or does something, I'm gonna go above and beyond to show you I can do that. But then, you know, that creates a pattern. So now that's and I had to learn that was the pattern because I wasn't I was getting everything done, but I wasn't enjoying things in between because I was on a mission and I didn't understand that until therapy.
Right, and a lot of times that happens, and that's a great example because, you know, it was positive to get you to where you are. It was a negative what we call reinforces. It reinforced it, but it got you to where you are. But the thing is, you have to understand what role that plays because now somebody does something, you're gonna top them and you're gonna listen, you know, and it puts you in a bind because you never enjoy your success.
Correct.
You don't get to enjoy who you are and what you have created because you're too busy chasing the next. I gotta get, you know, and it's like, okay, just breathe. Right. And I tell people a lot of times, just breathe. Just breathe.
You know, my team used to be like, okay, we did that. Let's go to the. And it's like, yo, we just worked a year on this, and are you happy with it? I'm like, yeah, but we gotta. And I never really understood that. And like you said, like you might not be all the way off, but it's things in your childhood that affect. You know, what you do in your adulthood, and I just think that's important for us to know because you might not understand that about you, and you might want to sit down and get some type of help so you can understand you better.
Absolutely, and it's going to be critical because otherwise you're going to wonder at some point in life, why am I not enjoying? And what's wrong? And then usually people externalize, what's wrong with everybody else? Why can't all these people? No, it's not about them. You know, you have to sort of look inward. And you want to enjoy life. And this is what it's about, learning to enjoy family and love and be able to be comfortable because nothing's perfect. And nothing's gonna last forever either.
I got one for you, Doc. I didn't even ever enjoy my food. I was trying to hurry up and eat so I can get back on the grind. I'm like, what's wrong with y'all?
I have to laugh. I have to share a quick story with you. There's a whole process, technique we call mindfulness, where you really take time to enjoy just breathing and being still and whatever. And it's a thing called mindful eating. And I was working with this woman once, and I told her, you know, you need to stop, enjoy every bite, try to taste the flavors and the whole bit. And I didn't realize every day she ate a salad. And she says that after she had to do, she was saying, this crap tastes horrible. And she was like, I eat a salad, just keep going. And she said, it wasn't until I really sit there and taste it, thought, whoa, this is, so I don't like this. So that's what happens.
And you said something real, Doc. What I had to, and this is sound, you know, culturally, this is like, what are you talking about? But I had to also understand that breathing was one of my biggest tools.
That's right.
Like, you know, if you take the chance to control your breath, like you can slow your heart rate down. You can build it up. You can if you're upset about something, you can, you know, if you in one of those states where you just have to go deep, like you just have to breathe and understand. And once I realized that, that saved me a lot of just undue stress.
Absolutely.
You know?
And we deal with stress on a day and learn how to meditate, learn how to just be still. Be still, do nothing. I tell people every now and then I'll take what I call a do nothing day. And they go, what do you do? I said, nothing. It's just like, well, you got to just be still.
Just watch some Breaking Bad and chill out.
Yeah, that's right. Watch the leaves blow. You know, listen to the birds sing. You don't have to be doing something every hour.
Yes, Doc, I enjoyed talking with you so much. This has been so helpful.
I've enjoyed it too.
You know, if I got some friends, they're gonna have to check in with you.
Hey, tell them, tell them, hey, tell them, and hey, no one will know it unless they tell someone, because absolutely.
I normally give my my audience some words of wisdom at the end of every show, and you know, just hearing you speak, I just hear you gotta take care of your star player. And that's you.
Absolutely.
You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else.
That's right.
And, you know, if you can go to the gym every day to try to look good for the gram or whatever you're trying to do, then you can work on yourself every day so you can feel better for yourself. And I feel like that's so important, because I tell you, I've had success. I've sold millions of records. I've done well for myself, but nothing feels as good as being mentally, physically, spiritually balanced and on point. And I tell you, that didn't happen until I started taking care of my star player. So take care of your star player. Thank you so much, Doc, for being here. And
Thank
you know, we're gonna check you out. We're gonna continue to stalk you on the gram.
Hey, please do. You know where to find me. You know, my website is www.askdrsherry.com, or you can follow me on social media. You got that at Ask Dr. Sherry. Or you can always email us at info@askdrsherry.com.
Keep an eye out for Dr. Sherry on your TV screen. You know what I'm saying? You need to check out mental health services. Check her out. She just gave you the website. That's right, drsherry.com. That's right, Dr. Sherry. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation on Worth the Conversation, and I hope to speak to you sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.